All right, viewers, let's get you an exclusive interview by Dr. Rakesh Mishra. He is the CCMB head, and he is in conversation with my colleague Sneha Murdani of all that you want to know of the new strain wreaking havoc across our country.
Dr. Mishra, there are concerns about the Andhra Pradesh variant of the infection called N440K variant. Just tell us, what is it that we know about this variant just yet?
No, the strain that has been picked by some reports is called N440K. And this is not a new strain. This is a variant which is existing from the first wave. And this was a dominant variant in the southern states, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Kerala, Karnataka for several months. And so we have been following it very closely. And our recent analysis shows that the occurrence of this variant is now diminishing, and other variants like UK variant and V.1.617, which was called double variant, double mutant, they are actually replacing this N440K. The confusion came because there was a report that this N440K in cell culture, when culture the virus, it gives very high titer. But that does not mean that it is more infectious. Those study needs to be done on animals or humans, not on from the epidemiological survey. But one, that it is a not new variant. This was known before, and the study that was reported recently is from the samples collected in last year's July, August, that period of time. And current studies on genomic surveillance shows that N440 is diminishing. It's almost vanished in Karnataka, and other parts also it is slowly fading away. So it's not of a concern anymore.
If not this, then which exactly is the variant of concern in southern India and other parts of India, sir?
So severity of infection for all of them is very similar. Mortality, severity, they look very, very similar. Infectivity of some of the variants is little more than others. For example, UK variant in our perception is the most infectious. Next is 617, or the double mutant, that is next most infectious. And then there are other smaller variants which are much less than these. But these two are the ones that are increasing their footprint in different parts. For example, in northern India, the UK variant is very dominant in Punjab, in Haryana, Jammu Kashmir, most probably in UP and in these parts. And in Maharashtra and Gujarat and in Bengal, Karnataka is the double variant B.1.617 that is more prevalent. And these are the variants that are now gradually replacing the older ones because they are less infectious. But all these variants are similar clinical symptoms. That means they are not more lethal, not more severe phenotypes. And also they are all, various studies have shown that they all will be controllable by the vaccines. That means they are not resistant to the vaccines. So we are lucky in that way.
There's also information coming in that 8 lions have tested positive in a zoo. How big a concern is this?
Okay, so we have just a couple of minutes. So I can tell you that lions we have been testing from the first pandemic itself. And now we have found 8 lions that are positive, and we have taken care of them. We have advised zoo what to do. The lions have now recovered, and their variant is not any new variant, is old variant. And there are other reports from other parts of the world that lions can get this infection, and that is what happened here also, because zoo was open, people were visiting, and zookeepers may have been infected. But that is now put in place. But we have figured it out before any damage is done, and government has taken appropriate action of closing all the zoos and all the animal parks and so on, so that there is no further infection incident to the wildlife.
What about the third wave of the infection?
If it is affordable economically, I agree with that. But if it kills more people than it saves, then so this is something which policymakers and government should decide based on the input and preparedness it has. But some kind of lockdown will be needed because things are not improving, infections are increasing. So we have to save people now. So therefore, we have to break the chain.
What's your opinion on a lockdown? Because several doctors have been saying that this is the time to now impose a stricter national lockdown, the kind that we'd seen last year. Is it time now, sir?
There's no way of, we have to, let's get out of the second wave, then we can think of third wave. There will be third wave, fourth wave, but they may be unnoticeable or very small. That depends upon what is the status of vaccination there, what is the how much culture we have adopted in terms of mask and social distancing. Many things will matter. But at the moment, no prediction can be made about a third wave. All the prediction about second wave has gone wrong. So let us go to ground and do our job and worry about third wave when we get out of the second wave.
Lastly, there is another variant that has wreaked havoc in Brazil. It's the P1 variant. Just to give us an estimate about this particular variant and its spread in India.
No, this is not a prominent thing in India. It may be in a small part, so that's why it's not so well studied. So at the moment, our concerns are UK variant and 617, which is the Indian variant, and some other versions of Indian variant, like 617.1.2.3. There are 3 of them who have come. So those are the things that we have to focus on.
When is the second peak of the infection expected?
I wish I could tell you. All it depends upon how we are going to behave. If we change our behavior, or if to force that change is forced on us by lockdown, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we will come down significantly. I mean, we will be other side of the peak. If we don't do it, then we will keep going up in a miserable situation with large number of infection. So I'm sure that more strict measures will come in place in coming days because the situation is untenable to many places. But hopefully by end of the month, life will be becoming more normal. Right now we are going through miserable, very desperate situation.
All right, viewers, you know, the situation right now where the national capital is concerned is desperate. We were just approached right now and she's just gone in. There was this young girl. Her father is on a BiPAP machine. She desperately needs an ICU bed. She can't find one, understandably. And says his oxygen levels are now less than 70. She broke down. She went inside. And this is the story that is playing out in front of every hospital, viewers. And that is the reason why the Delhi High Court today tore into the center, asking why should not contempt of court proceedings be initiated against the central government. The Delhi High Court slammed the centre over shortage of oxygen, saying the existing infrastructure is crumbling and the availability of beds cannot be put to use. The High Court pulled up the centre, saying why contempt cases should not be filed for non-compliance of Supreme Court. The Delhi High Court summoned Piyush Goyal and Sumitra Daura, top central government officials, tomorrow. Delhi's projected daily oxygen requirement is of 976 metric tons. The centre, which had allocated 480 metric tons to the national capital, has revised the allocation on paper to 590 metric tons, but none of that is actually filtering down to the national capital. As the COVID crisis continues to worsen in the national capital, the hospitals have now started installing their own oxygen concentrators, hoping to tide over the oxygen shortage. But it is, as we speak, the gap of the oxygen concentrators, hospitals, is far, far wide. All right, viewers, let's move on. Now, if you're in the national capital, you cannot avoid the screeching sirens of ambulances. That is practically the only sound which very frequently breaks the lockdown, the stillness of this lockdown in the national capital. However, this is also a time where ambulance drivers are feeding off the misery. Not all, a few, feeding off the misery of the people. Look at this investigative report.
A disastrous firestorm. As surging demands bring emergency responders to a breaking point. An India Today investigation found some ambulance operators charging exorbitantly high to shift COVID patients. This ambulance operator outside a private hospital in East Delhi, for instance, demanded 50,000 rupees to transport a sufferer to a healthcare facility in Gurugram. More than 1,000 rupees per kilometer in his ICU ventilator ambulance.
हाँ जी सर बोलिए मेदांता जाना है पेशेंट कहाँ आपका फार्मा पार्टनर है जी फार्मा पार्टनर अच्छा वेंटिलेटर पे या ऑक्सीजन पे है 50,000 रुपये लगेंगे इसके बिल आपको मिलेगा नहीं और सर पैसा हम एडवांस में लेंगे जमा करा करके जब चलेंगे
50,000 rupees for a large ICU ventilator ambulance, which normally wouldn't cost more than 12,000 rupees from Delhi to Gurugram. The cost of PPE kits for medical staff on board included. This ambulance operator outside Delhi's GTB hospital solicited 25,000 rupees for transporting a patient in a small ambulance and 40,000 rupees in a big one.
सारी चीजें ओके वेदांता ये गुड़गांव वाला
एसी चाहिए
ऑक्सीजन भाई 25 लगेंगे
25,000 रुपये 25,000 रुपये
हाँ एसी रहेगी भाई
और ये बड़ी वाली नहीं हो सकती क्या
बड़ी वाली भी मिल जाएगी बड़ी का रेट ज़्यादा जाएगा वेंटिलेटर मिल जाएगी कितना है उसका 40 चलो
We next investigate private emergency services in Noida. This ambulance operator here quoted 30,000 rupees for transporting a patient to Gurugram with a doctor on board and 20,000 with nursing staff.
गुड़गांव मैक्स हेलो ये कहाँ से जाना है नीलकंठ बस फोल्ड तो डॉक्टर के साथ भिजवाऊँ या नर्सिंग स्टाफ के साथ आप दोनों के पैसे बता दो अगर हम अफोर्ड कर पाएंगे तो ऐसे भेज देंगे या फिर डॉक्टर के साथ जाएगी तो 30,000 पड़ेंगे अच्छा नर्सिंग स्टाफ के साथ जाएगी तो 22,000 पड़ेंगे डॉक्टर के साथ जाएगी तो 9,000 का बस इससे ज़्यादा नहीं पड़ेगा एम्बुलेंस नहीं है ढूंढने से भी
In September last year, the Supreme Court ordered state governments to fix ambulance charges and ensure no patient is overcharged. Them fleecing distraught families during this unprecedented crisis is clearly a result of a lack of enforcement in the national capital region. With Nitin Jain and Mohammad Hizbullah for India Today's investigation team.
सारी चीजें ओके
All right, viewers. Now, Delhi, across the country, vaccination between 18 to 45 of years age was rolled out since yesterday. But what at least Delhi has witnessed are very, very long queues. Wait for over 3 to 4 hours as citizens between the age group of 18 to 45 line up to get their shot. Long queues were seen outside various vaccination centers. There was mismanagement and ruckus as well. Pre-registration is mandatory for beneficiaries. There is no walk-in facility for this category. The Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal on Saturday had announced that the vaccination for the people between 18 to 44 will be taking place from 3rd of May, while the vaccination for the same was started across the country on May 1st. All right, viewers, the IPL has finally been suspended in India after 4 franchisees reported positive cases. The game is now suspended. IPL is suspended. There is no fresh date yet. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of News. Do stay with us. Up next is COVID Dispatch.
Physically, do you think...
With options fast drying up, BCCI had to bite the bullet.
Been beating on it.
The Indian Premier League season 14 has been officially postponed, with more COVID cases sneaking into the so-called secure bio bubble of the various franchises.
Shot.
Sunrisers Hyderabad's Wriddhiman Saha tested positive on the day the team was scheduled to play Mumbai Indians in Delhi. Amit Mishra from Delhi Capitals also joined the list of players who are down with COVID, which meant as many as 4 teams had reported active cases in their bio bubble. During the 2 days of deliberation, it was even considered to give IPL a week-long break and then resume in Mumbai. But the board knew it was always a matter of 1 positive COVID case. Kolkata Knight Riders was the first team that reported positive cases, with Varun Chakrabarti and Sandeep Warrior finding themselves COVID positive. It did not take long for the Chennai Super Kings to reveal their cases, with bowling coach Lakshmipati Balaji also falling prey to the virus. BCCI, particularly IPL, has often found itself a punching bag, and this year was no different. The tournament was scheduled to be played in 6 venues despite the massive outbreak of Covid-19 in the country. After 29 matches, the BCCI finally announced that the season has been postponed and the players will now have to return home. Some of the foreign countries have stopped flights from India, and international players, especially the Australians, will now feel the heat. The original plan was to stage the IPL at 3 grounds in Mumbai and 1 in Pune. But as it turned out, there were 6 venues picked up for the games, which means each team taking 5 flights, thereby increasing the chances of contraction. But the strong-willed BCCI may not have given up all hope. As it still hasn't called off the tournament, it has been postponed, to quote the board's official version. Who knows, they may be able to find a window for the remaining 31 matches sometime later. Sports Bureau, India Today.